This week on Chicago Newsroom 2.0, Sufjan Sohail, Swati Staley, and Adrian Segura return to the roundtable to discuss the latest killing of a U.S. citizen by ICE agent, the CPS Board Chair's effort to plug leaks to the press, and the early fallout from the newly approved 2026 city budget.
Chicago mayoral candidate Joe Holberg joins us to present his case for the city's top job.
State Senator Lakeisha Collins, Cook County Clerk Monica Gordon, Cook County Commissioner Tara Stamps discuss safeguarding elections and protecting voters' rights.
And Monica Fox of the Kidney Foundation of Illinois is here to share her personal story as a two-time kidney transplant recipient and the critical importance of increasing the number of kidney donors in Black and Brown communities. I'm Karen Freeman Wilson.
I'm Glenn Eden. We've put together an incredible hour of local news and information that matters the most to Chicagoans.
And it all starts right now.
This week, we reconvene the Brown Table for a conversation on a trio of pressing issues that speak to public trust, public safety, and public accountability, both here in Chicago and across the country. First, we'll discuss a national incident that has ignited protests and renewed debate about federal immigration enforcement. In Minneapolis, a U.S. citizen was fatally shot by an ICE officer during a federal operation, a killing that has drawn wide condemnation from local officials, sparked protests in cities nationwide, and raised serious questions about the force and use of it by federal agents. This comes on the heels of other controversial shootings tied to immigration enforcement in recent months. Back here at home, fallout from the passage of Chicago's 2026 city budget continues to reverberate through City Hall, within days of the council approving a $16.6 billion budget. City Chief Financial Officer Jill Jaworski announced her resignation to take a new job, and Mayor Brandon Johnson is warning of potential mid-year layoffs as revenue projections are reassessed. And in the nation's third largest school district, Chicago Board of Education President Sean Hardin has launched 2 internal investigations aimed at determining who leaked sensitive information to the press, a move that has raised questions about transparency and governance in the school systems. Joining me to help at least try to make it make sense are roundtable regular Sufjan Sohail, Chair of the Cook County Commission on Human Rights, Swati Staley, partner with Just Act Partners, and Adrian Segura, President of the Luminary Collective. Sufjan, Swati, and Adrian, welcome back, friends. Let's get to it.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, we've seen federal agents kill a U.S. citizen, 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, a mother and community member. First and foremost, condolences to her family and her children. Yet, national reactions to federal enforcement deaths have often differed sharply, depending on the race of the person killed. Why does it take the death of a white U.S. citizen for many Americans to suddenly care about federal use of force, even though Black and Brown communities have been reporting similar or worse outcomes for years? Who wants to take this?
I'm happy to start.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
It's really sad, right? And it's been heartbreaking to see. It's been energizing to see people show up in this way in the last week. You know, why is these things happening? Why is the government so quick to deny that this was wrong and take accountability? Hey, this officer shouldn't have done it. We're going to investigate. But I just read today that the Assistant Attorney General of the United States is not going to be investigating it. And then, to your point, why does it take the shooting of someone who's white for this to become a national issue where people are caring? And I think it's because now more people, those in power, are seeing themselves in this position that this could be me. I could get killed. Where it's just not a them, it's not a Black and Brown issue of those people who aren't really Americans getting targeted and they don't really belong here anyway. It's making people question the truth and legitimacy of these federal actions. And it goes back to, I think, this is just the latest step of seeing what the government can get away with. It's the abuse of power. It's how do we crack down on protesters? We saw it with student protesters. With Gaza, we're seeing it now, is that the more that they want to see how much power they can wield against, these people are pushing back, and now they're getting away with the murder. So I'm glad people are rising up. It shouldn't take someone who's white for people to be asking these questions, but I'm glad it's getting the national attention now that people are starting to take action and demand change for how these systems are operated.
Absolutely, and we were talking about this in terms of this is happening in Minneapolis, where we had a George Floyd incident. What does that say, about what's happening in that city and how that relates to what's going on today?
Yeah, I mean, to commandeer a point that Sufjan made, right? This is now, multiple people who have been killed by ICE agents or Border Patrol. 2 in Chicago, right? That got very little news attention. That didn't create this groundswell that I think is happening around the tragic death of Renee Nicole Good. I think that what we're seeing in Minneapolis is nothing short of a troop deployment. This is a militarized situation that's been created by the administration. Before the segment, we were talking about the fact that Minneapolis has less than 600 sworn police officers. Yeah. The deployment of 2,000 ICE officers to Minnesota so significantly dwarfs the law enforcement presence within Minneapolis that it's nothing but an attempt to intimidate citizens into thinking that something tragic is happening in their own communities. But the real tragedy is ICE's presence and terrorizing U.S. citizens and lawful residents, and frankly, anyone who is just simply trying to exist in the world. That it's created this wave of fear that is the whole point of ICE's presence in our major metropolitan cities.
Yeah, Adrian?
Yeah, I mean, not much to add to what both of them shared. I do think that, this push around what we're hearing and what we're seeing, schools shutting down and closing in response, the fear that instills. I also think, from my end, just as an observer of what's happening in Minneapolis, what we saw unfold in Chicago this past summer, I think puts many of us on edge. I also think that, while it completely condemned the actions that ICE has taken, I do think 50 protests amassing across the country shows the American people are paying attention. And I think that is an opportunity, both for elections that are coming up. I also think it's an opportunity to really begin to raise awareness around the way that our communities are being over-policed. I think that the stat you just gave, right, 2,000 plus troops basically, like dwarfing your ability, the local response's ability to even respond to an action, I think is.
Yeah, and we've talked in the past at Roundtable about the idea around these investigations and whether or not they're actually creating public trust. And it's clear with this particular situation, the fact that Secretary Noem and the president spoke out about this officer's perceived legality in his actions without considering any of the evidence that had fully come out is really problematic. And I just want to share, there's this idea around the legality of actions. I did a deep dive into DHS and DOJ regulations around use of force over the past week because I was trying to understand how are they justifying this from a legal perspective? And truly, there is no legal justification, right? So I just want to read the DOJ regulations specifically about discharging a firearm into a moving vehicle. Specifically, and this is a quote, specifically, firearms may not be discharged at a moving vehicle unless a person in the vehicle is threatening the officer or another person with deadly force by means other than the vehicle. At a baseline, there is a violation just based on what we saw in the videos. This woman was unarmed. The fact that an ICE agent is shooting openly into a vehicle as it is attempting to flee is wrong under DOJ regulations. Yeah. And so the fact that there was a desire to completely declare this officer innocent without a proper investigation does not create trust at all in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do want to move on to our next topic and really get into the 2026 Chicago budget fallout. And so, interestingly enough, we have a CFO that just departed, and so soon after the budget's passage. What does that signal about confidence in Chicago's financial plan?
I mean, there is very little, and I feel week after week we're here talking about the city politics, we're here talking about the budget, and me as a citizen of the city has less and less faith in the execution of what's happening. From the mayor's office right now, where it was really hard for him to. He wasn't able to pass his own budget. Now his CFO's leaving. Yeah. It's just indicating that it's a signal, right? It's a signal that his own team doesn't have faith in him and in the government, and it makes me sad.
What are the general ramifications, though, when a CFO just leaves just out of the blue, and especially at a pretty critical time for the city?
I'm happy to start as far as
you kick us off.
So, exits in government positions happen all the time.
Sure.
And I think that as someone that worked in an administration that had 4 different CEOs in the span of 4 years, different chief operating officers, different CFOs, I'm less worried about the exit. I do think that sometimes it may be triggered by only the CFO knows why they left, right? And I think digging into speculation, maybe it's an opportunity that they couldn't pass up, right? So it's hard to say, oh, it must be something with the administration that's triggering this exodus,
sure,
or this high profile exit, because I really do think people make those decisions. They're very personal decisions that they make. That being said, I do think the way this entire process has unfolded does demonstrate kind of the juncture that we're in right now, which is one where we have an administration that's not willing to listen and build bridges across different aisles to actually come up with a productive solution. I think that in and of itself, regardless of who the CFO is and regardless of who's kind of like the next in command, the reality is that starts at the top. The ability to build consensus, build bridges, align your team, align towards a central vision for the city. I think that's the missing piece here. And we saw some aldermen see an opportunity and band together and say, well, absent that, we're going to take control on our end. But I don't look into exits like that, because I do think that the reason why people make them are deeply personal.
Sure.
But to push back a little bit on that is,
Sophia.
I feel it's not isolated, right? There's been many people in the administration who've left, and I agree that people leave for different reasons all the time. But I think the number and the level of the people who've left and transitioned out, I also feel that they're not buying into the administration as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just the root of the cause of just really staying the course, and sometimes or not.
Right.
So if layoffs happen mid-year, who is most likely to feel the impact, and what does that say about how this budget was constructed?
Yeah, I could take this one. I mean,
Sure.
what I hope, and what I've said before at this roundtable, is that I think there are things that the city could do and this administration could do to tighten its belt. And I think the opportunity has existed now for almost 2 years for some of those actions to be taken. We've seen, the hiring of Ernst & Young with the significant payment that was made to them in order to identify opportunities for cost savings. We then talked about the Civic Federation report about how, many of those things that could have been implemented have not been implemented. And so it's unfortunate, because I feel like we've talked about this need for financial sustainability for so long, and it's been a constant topic, not just with this administration, with the city's operations overall, but the fact that no one is taking any significant action for financial sustainability and austerity in a way that could minimize the impact on city employees as well as the services to the community, is a missed opportunity. This is where leaders step up to really show that they're making hard decisions in the best interest of the city to govern, which is what we've elected this mayor to do.
And Swati, that's a great segue into my next question here. Wrapping up is really, how much political risk does Mayor Johnson take if residents see service cuts or job losses tied directly to this budget?
Significant. I think I absolutely think it's a significant political risk, because I think that the opportunity has existed, and there has been so much conversation around what could have been done up until this point to avoid cutting off services to citizens.
And I would add not just the mayor at risk. I would also say the alder people who have co-sign onto his vision without actually doing any of the work. Because I do think that's part of the problem. And so I do think that there are many alderpersons who you'll start to see either begin to distance themselves from the administration and or begin to, join ranks with other potential. I actually do think what we're going to start to see as we head into another round of elections is going to be a strengthened city council and a weakened mayoral administration.
Absolutely. We saw that it was the lack or the absence of leadership from the mayoral administration that led to city council stepping up and creating this alternative budget that ultimately was the one that was passed. Unprecedented in city history. So I completely agree with you.
Well, moving to our last and final topic is CPS Board investigations into leaks. Look, I think all of us at this table understand and know the challenges and nuances of leaks, and especially a good juicy one. I can write so many, unfortunately, novels about this one, but where is the line between protecting confidential information and punishing people for speaking out in the public interest?
I feel like you're punishing the messenger when you should be focused on the message. And aren't these public meetings? So what's the problem with information from public meetings being released? So it's focusing on the why rather than like, what are we talking about that can't be shared with this public whom we are elected by to serve?
Sure.
And to me, it just raises so many flags of accountability, transparency, and just another notch on the belt of lack of trust in these who we've chosen to represent us in these spaces.
Sure. Well, to that point, so does launching these leak investigations risk silencing legitimate concerns about how CPS is being run right now?
I think President Harder made the wrong decision by calling this out. I actually think it erodes trust. And the reality is, there's already division amongst those elected and those appointed. I think this further reinforces, those who have been elected, to your point, Sufyan, are the ones pushing for more transparency in the process, and then those who've been appointed are kind of raising investigations to look into why people are sharing things with the public.
Yeah, and I will also say, we're talking about, we've had so many conversations about the CPS budget in the past. The idea around hiring a law firm to investigate leaks just seems like a mismanagement of resources that are already so scarce. We should be focusing on the things that help our students, help our teachers, and move us towards financial sustainability as a district. And so I don't think that many people will receive spending dollars to seek out legal support in order to do an investigation on a leak as a worthwhile use of resources when there are so many other challenges that the district needs to be paying for right now.
Yeah, and the last question is, what does it say about the culture of leadership at CPS right now, and what kind of oversight might be possibly missing?
I mean, there's leadership vacancies still, and to your earlier question, I think this also prevents others who want to be whistleblowers or parents or staff members from sharing their challenges and issues with the district as well. But I think it goes back to that there is this vacuum with CPS and which needs to be filled.
Well, Sufyan, Swati, and Adrian, as always, thank you for the gifts of your time and keeping us informed with great insights. On the other side of the break, I'll sit one-on-one with Chicago mayoral candidate Joe Holberg. Stay with us.
I am Dr. Obari Cartman, inviting you to join us for an all-new episode of Brothers Talking, where the brothers and I will discuss Black men and sexuality. The brothers and I will look forward to seeing you at 7:00 p.m. exclusively on CAN TV, cable channel 19, streaming on cantv.org and on the CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
They say television is about sitting back. We say it's about stepping up. Your block has stories worth telling. Your neighbors have voices worth hearing. Chicago has a heartbeat worth sharing. Stop watching their world. Start showing yours. It's time to tune in and be seen. CAN TV, always here, always yours. Experience the power of community television.
As Chicago looks ahead to the next mayoral elections, voters are beginning to hear from a growing field of candidates offering different visions for the city's future. This week, we continue our commitment to giving Chicagoans direct access to those voices. Mayor candidate Joe Holberg believes that the city is at a crossroads, facing challenges around public safety, affordability, economic opportunity, and trust in city government. And that bold, practical leadership is needed to move Chicago forward. Joe, welcome to the newsroom.
It is an honor to be here.
And so happy to have you here. And it's just out of the way right now. Always great to talk to a Michigan Wolverine.
Go Blue.
But we are certainly here to talk about why this race and why now. You said Chicago is at a crossroad. What do you believe the current administration has gotten wrong? And what would you do differently in your first year as mayor?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me again. Just taking a quick step back, just want to tell you like a little bit about who I am and why I think we're at that crossroads. So,
Sure.
You're going to have to forgive me, Chicago, but I'm from rural Michigan. I went to the University of Michigan as a first generation college student, a Pell Grant recipient, and I ran out of money and was forced to choose to pay for tuition or housing. I couldn't afford both, so I paid tuition, and I was homeless and I slept in my car. I graduated, came to Chicago. I was a teacher on the west side. I taught middle school math. And then after that, I started a business downtown in 1871. And so, when I think about Chicago, this is a place that gave me a start, gave me an opportunity. And now as somebody that's deeply committed to and loves the city, and as a parent of kids going to CPS, I'm sitting there, and why I think we're at a crossroads is we are seeing the city trending in a direction that I don't think most Chicagoans want to see. We are losing our sense of affordability, which has always been one of Chicago's great strengths. We are seeing taxes just being piled on hardworking families. I can't even get on the CTA as somebody that rides it every single day. I can't get on the CTA without trash being littered everywhere. I see people smoking weed, smoking cigarettes, and it's those types of indicators that say to me, we can do better as a city. And if we have leaders that are paying attention to the needs of average Chicagoans, we can figure out pragmatic ways to solve our problems and move forward to a vision of the future where each one of us can succeed regardless of what neighborhood we come from.
Sure. Thank you for that. So how do you plan to differentiate your message and connect emotionally with voters amidst a potentially crowded field of candidates, including Mayor Johnson?
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of folks that are popping their heads up now.
There are, and fortunately for me at this point, I'm the only declared candidate, so I've got a little bit of breathing room for a time. But in terms of talking to voters, it's sitting there and saying, look, we cannot not build housing. We have to build housing. And if we build housing, it'll be more affordable for renters as well as owners. But right now, we don't build enough. And why don't we build enough? It's not a central focus of Brandon Johnson. He's doing other things, right? And so when we think about growth and when we think about what we need to do to move our city forward, we have to turn our economy back on. It's stalled out. We need more housing so it's more affordable. And we have to stop the divisive, negative rhetoric where Johnson is attacking business as if they are the enemy. And last time I checked, and what I believe is businesses are job creators. As a small business owner myself, I created jobs in the city, which led to people paying taxes. It led to them having earnings so that they could go spend at restaurants and throughout the city. And we need to move into a reality in which we are working together. People and businesses are part of the solution, because when we have more jobs and we have more opportunities, then we all can win together.
A question just to follow up on that. Do you believe that there can be harmony between business, between neighborhoods, and between civic, just to make sure that the consensus is being built to have equitable growth, and not just a pure focus on making the business community happy, which is important?
It's it's super important to make sure that the business community is able to create jobs and grow, because what that does is it not only brings jobs and opportunities, but then it allows the city of Chicago to have a larger tax base, and it has a larger population, right? If we have more jobs, we have more people, and we have more taxpayers. And so when businesses grow, regular hardworking people actually win. Johnson's message is the exact opposite of mine. When businesses succeed, he sees it as a zero-sum game where people lose. But those are the jobs that people need to live a prosperous life. And my goal to grow the city is to give people those jobs and those opportunities so that they can raise a family and be successful in the city.
I want to move on to public safety and trust. Mayor Johnson has emphasized a public safety approach rooted in social investment and long-term prevention. So you've argued for a different balance. And so how would you and your public safety strategy differ in practice, especially for neighborhoods that are demanding immediate relief for violence?
That's right.
From
Yeah.
violence, actually.
It's a great question. And this is where Brandon Johnson deserves credit, right? He made a really great hire in bringing in the police commissioner, Larry Snelling. Snelling is balancing a seemingly intractable issue, which
Yes.
is just so unethical and immoral that ICE is here and sort of ripping apart and trying to terrorize our people and our communities. And so, I don't want to dismiss the fact that he is dealing with a really important issue. And we need leaders who are stepping up for people all across the city. When I think about safety, one of the keys to creating safer communities is to actually be able to bring in jobs and opportunities. When you are feeling economically fulfilled, you don't have time to go out and seek other ways to advance yourself economically, whether that's stealing a car or anything that's happening across the city. And if we get people to a place where we're have a really robust economy, then crime goes down. I mean, you see that throughout history, and you see that throughout the nation. And so I think we really do need to focus on growth.
Yeah. I also, speaking of growth, I really want to focus the next question on city finances and budget priorities, which is a big hot topic right now. Chicago faces, as you know, mounting fiscal pressure, and from pension obligations to looming transit shortfalls. What specific choices would you make in the city budget that you believe the current mayor has avoided or mishandled?
Yeah, I think Brandon Johnson has a sledgehammer, and it's taxes. It is taxes, taxes, taxes. And there is a place for taxes. But average Chicagoans are struggling to buy groceries. They're struggling to pay rent. And the last thing our city needs to do to people all across the city is say, we are going to make it less affordable to live here, right? And so when we think about public finances, right? I navigated my business through COVID, which was an incredibly challenging time. And the thing that I learned is I needed to be honest with myself about what we needed to do to make the business successful. And I had to be honest with my employees, the people that I employed in the city. And so when you think about what Brandon Johnson has not done successfully, he's continued to advocate for $300 million bond financing. He's destabilizing our credit market, which is jeopardizing our ability to borrow at inexpensive rates. He just went through a chaotic and historic budget process where, fortunately, aldermen said, we cannot penalize business for operating in Chicago. We need to pump the brakes. We need to stop spending. And we need to listen to the commission or the EY report, which when delivered to him, he pushed to the wayside and ignored 80 to 100 cost-saving efficiencies that would have respected taxpayer dollars, right? I think the mayor owes it and is responsible to the people of Chicago to be a financial steward of their resources, not go out and just spend and spend and spend. So we've got to get the budget under control. We need a balanced budget, not a broken budget, and we have to figure out how to be more efficient with the limited taxpayer resources that we have.
Well, thank you so much, Joe.
Sorry, that's where I really get going.
Well, totally understand
finances,
that. You got a lot to talk about, and
Yeah.
I know we'll be seeing you around more, and I hope you can come back here soon. Thank you for making the time to speak with us, and best of luck to you in your campaign.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
On the other side of the break, Karen discusses election integrity and voters' rights protections with Cook County Clerk Monica Gordon, State Senator Lakeisha Collins, and Cook County Commissioner Tara Stamps. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Dr. Norcott. On the next edition of Be Well, we'll examine the stressors and internal conflicts faced by those of us who are the firsts in our families or communities to step into new territory with my guest, Dr. Shanta Kanukolu. Join the conversation on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling, experience the power of community television.
CAN TV is the lens through which Chicago's stories are told, harnessing the unifying power of community television. With CAN TV On Demand, immerse yourself in the richness of our city through exclusive stories and programs tailored just for you, connecting you to the heartbeats of our streets, the voices of our people, and the spirit that makes Chicago unique. Discover the strength of your community on CAN TV On Demand.
At a moment when trust in our democratic institutions is being tested nationwide, the integrity of our elections and the protection of voters' rights has never been more important. Here in Cook County and across Illinois, election officials and lawmakers are working to ensure that every eligible voter can cast a ballot safely, securely, and without intimidation, while also defending the systems that make our elections fair and transparent. Here to talk about what it takes to safeguard our elections in real time, I'm joined by three leaders who sit at the intersection of policy, administration, and community advocacy. Cook County Clerk Monica Gordon, Illinois State Senator Lakeisha Collins, and Cook County Commissioner Tara Stamps. Welcome to the newsroom. The Cook County Clerk's Office is one of the largest election jurisdictions in the country. Would you talk about the responsibilities of your office and why it is important to do the work that you do?
So at its core, my office is responsible for every eligible voter in suburban Cook County to experience a fair and secure, to have a fair and secure opportunity to vote, to participate in our elections, but to also make sure that every vote is accurately counted. Every vote matters. But in addition to that, we want people to feel secure and confident in the process. We want them to feel included. So inclusivity is something that my office strives for. And for an example, when I created the position for diversity, equity, and inclusion, deputy clerk, it wasn't just about one area, one department. It was to make sure that we have equity across all departments. And where does that fit in elections? Every voice and every eligible voter in Cook County should be seen and heard, and they should feel like their vote is safe and secure, and we want to increase confidence and trust in the process because that's how we'll have longevity with voter participation.
Thank you for that. You've made it a point to say that elections in suburban Cook County are governed by state law, but administered locally. Why is it important to voters to understand that distinction, and how do you go about making sure that we know?
Because when I talk about each voter being able to participate in the process, they have to feel involved in the process. And that's very important. And we need them to understand that the election is pretty much run by the clerk's office in suburban Cook County. And it's also in a partnership with local election authorities. So it's not what happens to democracy and voting is not what happens to communities. It's what happens with communities because they're involved. And when they're involved in the process, that's where that confidence and trust takes place. But they need to understand that.
So it's a partnership.
Yes, it's definitely a partnership.
You've also said that access means very little if the electoral system itself is doubted. I think that's at the crux of trust. How do you balance expanding access to voting while also strengthening public confidence in the electoral process?
Well, for instance, access and security, they're not competing values, right? They're actually complementary. And some of the things we've done in the clerk's office, we've expanded voting locations. We have 2 new early voting locations. So that's part of it. And getting the information out there and the outreach. And also in opportunities for people to vote, when that includes vote by mail, along with early voting, and making sure they have the information. But also when it comes to security, they have to feel safe. They have to realize that their vote is being counted. But we also look at modern technology and how that helps secure the voting process. And so we engage and we embrace technology along with making sure that our voters have a say in what's going on. So it's really, as I stated before, it's a partnership, but I want to make sure that our goal includes access and security. We want voting to be safe, fair, secure, and we want it to be accessible by everyone. And that's where equity comes into play in our Cook County elections.
Thank you for that. Young voters often feel disconnected from institutions like the clerk's office or any other large institution. What role does your office play in helping first-time voters, young voters, feel connected and really get excited about being engaged in the electoral process?
Well, first impressions matter in democracy. And I'm very grateful because like the 2 legislators that we have on the panel served on my transition team. And they were both involved in strategies in terms of making sure that we get outreach done to the youth. We get them more engaged and more able to participate in the process. So we have a new initiative that many people have heard about. We have a partnership, an exclusive partnership with the Chicago Bears. And because we want to meet the students, we want to meet the youth where they are. Sure. We want to get them trained as election judges because when you participate in the process, you learn the process, you're more confident about it, you trust it more. So it's about transparency. We want to meet them where they are. So it was so many strategies and best practices developed by this transition team. And it was an amazing process. And you served on the transition team too.
Yes, that's right.
And so really engaging in these initiatives that really bring the youth in, bring the students in and get them more involved because it's not just about one election. It's about the next generation of democracy. Yes. And that's what we're encouraging.
That is so exciting. Senator Collins, I'm going to turn to you. Keeping with the theme of young voters. Yes. Young voters of color represent a growing but historically underrepresented segment of the electorate. Mm-hmm. What initiatives or funding proposals would you support to ensure that we are investing in voter engagement and really encouraging participation among that demographic?
Thank you for that question, Ms. Freeman. I think that, well, one, I am the Joint Black Caucus Chair of the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus. Yes. And with our caucus, we have a Civic Youth Engagement Day. I think on a broader scale for the state of Illinois, we've already done a lot as it pertains to legislation, making sure that civic engagement is happening in our schools. Is it being implemented across the board? I'm not sure, but we do have it where it's K through 12, and it's actually mandated a part of the curriculum in high school as well. But as far as our Civic Youth Engagement Day with the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus and our foundation, we had thousands of students, and I'm proud of this because I think this is the first year where we had majority of them coming from the west and the south sides of Chicago, right? And they took over the rotunda, and it's a day filled with just them, learning about, different, issues that are taking place, what matters to them. It was a fun-filled day. as far as working with our partners in the community, helping to get out the vote, or doing internships with our young people. I know there is a school in my district, Learn Charter. I partner with them every year. I have young people who pretty much come to my office. I take them out on the doors, teach them a lot about the grassroots. I've had these young people, I've been in office now for 5 years. I've had some of them for 4 years. Now they're off to college. Now I'm getting another group of young people. And what I would tell you that they love about this, and we're talking about non-funding right now, what I would tell you that they love about this, and what I hear every time, is that we've never been outside of our community. And if you know the 5th Senate District, it stretches from the west side all the way to the near north side.
Yes.
And so they get to see different communities, how different communities fight around a lot of these issues. And majority of these young people who are from Lawndale or Austin and so forth, they would tell me, like, I didn't know they had the same issue as me, even though the community looked probably a little bit better, but I didn't know that they had the same issues I had. So what I'm doing and what my colleagues and I are doing, we're going to continue to make sure that the election process is way more fair. We've done a lot of that work in the state of Illinois, but making sure that the engagement and the implementation, is right, so that we can get that population up and moving. I think what the clerk talked about, what I heard is hope. Like, our community, they need to feel hopeful again about being involved in this process. Some of this happens at home, but most of it is around their peers. And so it's what their peers listen to. How can we be more innovative? I think having that, that platform with the Bears is another way to meet our young people where they are. Social media is going to be a big thing for these young people. A lot of them take on leadership roles in my office, where they're running the social media, where they're learning how to run a social media, where they're taking on leadership roles of doing canvases in the district or phone banking initiatives and things like that. And it also helps them with their, resumes, because a lot of them call me now who are in college, like, hey, can I get a recommendation? Of course, so everything does not pertains to funding when it comes to the civic engagement piece.
Right.
A lot of it is just really opening up these spaces, and just a lot of the older generation kind of not fully moving out the way, but being there as some of the wisdom, but giving them the tools and the space
room.
and opportunity for them to step into these roles.
Making room.
And so I think that's what the Black Caucus, what we give to our young people, a part of our Civic and Youth Engagement Day, and even a part of our summit, our policy summit too. We're getting more young people involved into that space. So just being able to create these opportunities in these spaces for them to take on these leadership roles, and fighting around the issues that concern them, and not a lot of the issues that we think they care about, but the ones that they care about, and building legislation around that actually helps.
Thank you for emphasizing that young people see how much they have in common.
Yes.
In addition to their civic engagement. Commissioner Stamps.
Yes.
As a former teacher and educational administrator, would you talk about how the engagement of young people in elections is so important, not only to their future, but to our future?
Well, as the clerk said it, so thank you for this question, but as the clerk said, this is not just about one election, this is about the future of democracy.
Sure.
And unfortunately, young people get stereotyped even as being disengaged, disconnected, uninterested, and really that's not the truth. The real truth is they're alienated from the process. Sure. And so many of those things that offered a backbone, offered a structure, offered a pathway into civic engagement has been removed from the classroom. Although there is curricula around it, when you live in an environment that pushes testing over true, authentic engagement and assessment, and when teachers feel like, if I don't hit this certain score, if my children don't grow this, then some of those things that we know grow young people get pushed to the back. And so I think there's a number of things that has to happen. Teachers have to be liberated to do what they know works best. Children, young people have to be brought into the conversation in a way that leads it and not follow it. They have to be a part of the apparatus that grows democracy. They have to see where they are in it. We have to make sure that politics is personal. So we have to make sure that there's a bat to ball connection when we're trying to engage young people. Like, one of the things that I do when I'm talking to young folks is to say, hey, you're looking forward to getting your driver's license right at 16. Well, that wasn't always the case. That's legislation that proves that, right? You want to go off to college, right? You know, there were school loans, there's FAFSA, there's all of these things. Well, that's legislation. None of those things are just automatic, right? Those things we fought for. And so that's how you got to continue to bring young people in. But I am a firm believer of a couple of things that I heard, which is about the role that our more veteran citizens play in this world, this engagement of young people. And I just believe that at the intersection of the lived experience of our elders and the innovation of our youth is our salvation. Like you need both and. You need older people kind of shepherding them through this process. But you also need it to be talked about on a regular basis. It cannot be that thing that we rally around when it's election time. We got to rally around it all the time because that's how democracy works, that it's a part of everything that we do. And a lot of people, young and old, will say, well, I don't do politics. Well, I'm here to tell you, politics is doing you. So you need to get into it.
And I'm going to have to let that be, unfortunately, our final word. We could be here all afternoon because this is such a meaningful and robust conversation. Thank you, Clerk Gordon. Thank you, Senator Collins. Thank you, Commissioner Stamps, for joining us today and for sharing what we know is vital information.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
On the other side of the break, a remarkable story of love, hope, and second chances that I can guarantee you will not want to miss. Stay with us.
Paseo Boricua, marked by two huge metal Puerto Rican flags arching over a section of Division Street, are a proud historical and ongoing imprint of Puerto Rican identity here in Humboldt Park. I'm Hugo Balta. On the next episode of Sazón de Illinois, we'll sample the stories, culture, and cuisine of a family-owned business that has given this neighborhood its flavor for nearly 4 decades.
For more than 40 years, CAN TV has been Chicago's voice, your voice. We've shared your stories, amplified your concerns, and celebrated your triumphs. Now we want to hear from you. What programs matter most? What issues should we cover? How can we better serve your community? Visit cantv.org/feedback today. CAN TV. Experience the power of community television.
Our next guest knows firsthand what it means to wait, to hope, and ultimately to survive. Monica Fox is the Vice President of Government Relations and External Affairs for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois. But before she is an advocate, she is a 2-time kidney transplant recipient. Monica received her second kidney transplant in October 2025, and the donor was someone incredibly close to her heart, her daughter, who joins us for this conversation along with her son, Monica's grandson, Jacoby. Together, their story is a powerful reminder of the life-saving impact of organ donation and of the love and courage it often requires. Monica, Olivia, and young Jacoby, we welcome you to the newsroom.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
I cannot tell you just how heartening this is to have you here. Monica, you're a 2-time kidney transplant recipient.
Yes.
Can you take us back to the moment that you realized that you would have to have a second transplant? What did that feel like?
Well, luckily I understand the journey, and so I knew that it was possible, and I really knew it was coming because in January of 22, I had COVID pneumonia, and it really impacted me for the next 3 years. And over that time, I worked with my nephrologist, my cardiologist, my pulmonologist, in order to try and, save my kidney, basically.
Sure.
But over that time, my kidney function continued to decline. And cardiology was trying to be modest and and preserve my kidney function. But eventually, I went into the hospital in May of this year, 2025, and the cardiologist said to me, myself and Olivia, we can save you or we can save your kidney. And Olivia told him, save my mom, I have a kidney for her.
So let's talk about that, because second transplant, and it's somebody who's really close to you, your baby, your daughter.
Yes.
You know, obviously she wanted to do something courageous, but as a mom, even as a mom who needed a kidney, you had to really think about that.
Absolutely.
Would you talk about that?
Very difficult for me as her mother. She wanted to be my donor the first time around. She was just out of college. She hadn't started her life. She didn't have a full-time job or anything like that. And I just couldn't imagine it. I also did not know as much about living donation as I do now, because I was just starting to work at the foundation. So she, but this time around, she was adamant. There was no other option. She wasn't going to take no for an answer. The minute the doctor said, you know, that they could save me or my kidney, she immediately went over to the transplant clinic and began getting worked up.
So Olivia, the second time you put your foot down, you said, not only am I going to be a living donor, but you're my mother. So I'm going to make it work for all of us. But talk about that, and talk about it in the context of living donation and just really what we know is important in our community.
Yeah, so over the years, I've kind of joked that I've had this kidney on reserve for my mom. Since she turned it down the first time, I always said if she were to ever be in need again, I would be ready to step up. We already knew I was a match. We already knew I was healthy enough. So we kind of joked that I always had this kidney on reserve for her. So when the time came, there wasn't a second thought. It was just, you know, this is what we have to do. This is a part of the plan. This is a part of our journey. And so it was just no doubt about it. And the thing that I think is beautiful about living donation is that there are so many people that are on the waiting list right now. Sure. There are over 100,000 people on the organ donation waiting list. And every living donor not only saves the person that they're donating to directly, but they also save someone else on the list, because you let a spot up for someone else to then receive from the deceased donor that your loved one might have been waiting for as well. So to me, that's what's really powerful, is that, you know, regardless of if you participate directly donating to someone or via a chain where you can know that you're donating to and saving multiple people, living donation is an excellent option to kind of help fix or help all of the people that are waiting for organ donation.
That's an amazing perspective. Not only do you help the person that you're donating to, but you're opening up another spot.
Absolutely.
Jacoby, tell me how you feel about the fact that your mom gave your grandma a kidney. What did you think about that?
I like my mommy.
Speak up. Speak up.
I like my mommy giving my mommy a kidney.
You like the fact that your mommy gave your Mimi a kidney. Were you excited about that?
Why did you like it?
Because so she can't go to dialysis anymore.
That's right. She doesn't have to worry about dialysis anymore. That is a good reason. Thank you for that. And that means that you are really, really good to both of them, right?
Right.
Did you wait on them?
Yes.
Well, I know. You look like just the guy that would do that.
Good.
Okay.
Monica, talk about this whole concept and concern about disparities in Black and brown communities, and what we need to do to really educate each other so that we will have more donors and so that this won't be as much of a challenge in our community.
Yes, so in the Black and brown communities, we are 4 times more likely to suffer from kidney disease because of the high levels of high blood pressure and diabetes. Those are the two leading causes. There are also genetic causes as well.
Sure.
So it's really important to know that, a lot of people don't realize that high blood pressure could lead to kidney disease, or the diabetes could. So it's important for people to know their numbers and to stay on top of it and take their meds and try to keep those things under control, because they can absolutely impact your kidneys. And so, there are 1 in 3 Americans have kidney disease and 90% don't know it.
Wow.
So that's, it's critical that we educate people across the board about kidney disease.
When you think about your role as Vice President of Government Relations with the Kidney Foundation, and the fact that you've lived through this as a patient, how do you marry the two, and what does that make you even more determined to do?
Well, it's an absolute gift to be able to give back and to live in my purpose, which I believe that I was brought to this disease in order to do this mission. And so I am absolutely committed to the mission. I feel fortunate to be able to work this mission with the Kidney Foundation. And I'm committed to educating others. I don't want to see other people go through what I've gone through if we can stop it. So, yeah.
What do we need to do as a community, as those who care about each other and who care about our communities? What's our charge?
I think our charge overall is really to raise awareness. The 4 of us sitting at this table, somebody in your family has high blood pressure, somebody has diabetes. We have to continue to educate people about this so that they, can prevent or early detect their kidney disease. And if you detect it early, you can slow the progression of it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Monica, Jacoby, Olivia, Monica, and Jacoby, thank you all, not just for being here today, but for sharing your story. Your testimony has been powerful, and I'm sure it will resonate with our audience.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And now back to you, Glenn.
We want to hear from you, Chicago. Got an opinion on a topic you've been wanting to get off your chest? CAN TV is the place to do it. Share your opinion with us in 250 words or less. If your submission is selected, we'll invite you to join us on air to present your perspective to the entire city.
That's our time for this week. Thank you to all of our guests for joining us in conversation and community.
And thank you, Chicago, for making space for CAN TV and Chicago Newsroom 2.0 in your busy day. It's been a pleasure spending the last hour with you, Karen.
And right back at you, Glenn. I've enjoyed you. Here's hoping we get to do it again soon.
Thank you again, Chicago. Until the next time, be well and well informed.